Right, so of course I couldn't wait until tomorrow. I have to read some more tonight. So artificial light it is. If I keep hanging out here, I might have to put a lamp over there. I generally just don't like the lamps that go in a room because I'm obsessed with fairy lights, if you can't tell. These are not bright enough to be lights though. I don't think so. I don't want to get up and check. I can check that later. Either way, I don't think you care. I think I'm you just want me to read. Okay, we got it. Whew. Day 2. Mush for breakfast. Honesty's job goes terribly wrong. The city has a worse day. Camilla and Polemides keep her home tonight, in quotations. 4 days until the tomb opens. My brain is just like, this is no longer about the tomb opening and Alecto coming out. This is about the tomb opening and Harrow coming back. I don't know. Maybe somehow it's both. It's honestly probably both. Alright, chapter 7. We've got the skull of the second house. Nona's dream cut off abruptly. Something wet and heavy and awful had been dropped on her from above, right on her face, splattering drops everywhere. She squealed so loudly that someone above them stamped on the floor, at which point she had to stop squealing. Camilla was inflexible. She had pressed the button, and she had said, "Start." Nona closed her eyes so hard she could see bright lights at the fronts, little lightning patterns. It's the sitting part. My feet are in the nice water, the safe water. The water's in my boots. My socks are full of it. I'm talking to her, but I can't see her face. I tried to, Cam, but it's what always happens. I don't manage to look at it. It just doesn't work. That's fine. Keep going. We have a talk. What do you talk about? I don't know. I can't really understand. I hear the words. Sometimes I open my mouth and words come out, and I know I'm talking. Sensations? What are you touching? I'm touching her hands. She's touching my hands. But in the dream, it's always my hands. Remember, Cam, I'm not touching my own hands, I'm touching my own hands, but they're not mine. The pencil scribbled furiously. Okay, I know how it is. Keep going. There's eyes all around us, red eyes, in the darkness. I remember this time they're red. Do you have any thoughts? Yes, said Nona. I'm hungry. In the dream, really hungry. The pencil stilled. You're hungry? I'm so hungry, said Nona. Seems like your little Annabelle Lee is having some issues in her tomb, because you didn't leave her anything to eat. You dumb bitch, John. I'm sorry. The pencil didn't move. Nona realized Camilla must have been waiting for her, must have been disappointed, so she added in tones of slight injury. I probably would have remembered more, except then a wet cloth falls on my face and I go, ah, so loudly that the militia person above us stomps. So Pierre is probably going to get another rude letter about us. So really, I think the wet cloth on my face isn't a good idea, and can you change the alarm? Well, you didn't wake up, said Camilla. Anything else? Anything else at all? Nothing. The record button got pushed down with its big, bright clack. Nona, still rubbing her face where the sponge had hit it, panicked herself out of her clothes. Her arms and legs seemed even more unwilling to move in the same direction than normal, which meant she probably didn't even look like a worm with problems, but more like a spider who was about to go terminal. She didn't like the t-shirt waiting for her, even though she had been the one to lay it out. It depicted a cheeseburger with little legs. The Tinies liked it, but today she found it juvenile and unprofessional. Not the kind of thing for a teacher's aide at all. Camilla shone the little light at the end of the clipboard on her so she could do up the button on her trousers, and then the cinch, and Nona spent some time mopping her wet fringe. Sorry I gave you a fright, said Camilla, with the sponge. I didn't mean to. All Nona's resentment melted away. No, I'm sorry I didn't get up, she said, contrite. If you drop a sponge on me tomorrow, I promise I won't scream about it. No, I won't do the sponge again. Failed experiment. The pencil worked away at the paper. Nona patted her hair down to make sure the braids were still tight, that nothing was coming out, And when she stood up and peered at herself in the mirror, comforted herself, and when she stood up and peered at herself in the mirror, comforted herself on that part. Her hair still looked great, at least. There were dark circles under her eyes, and she rubbed them with her thumbs. Nona, when you're looking at your hands, that startled her. Camilla rarely asked anything after Nona had recited her dream. Yes? Who do they feel like they belong to? Do you like them? Nona chortled. Not one bit. Nona hated having hands. What does that mean? Is this just Electo? In their body? And Gideon is God knows where? In Electo's body, maybe? I don't know how the fuck that would work. But I don't understand who might hate having hands. I don't know. For some reason that feels weird and possibly important. So I'm going to put a purple tab there. I am also out of orange tabs for funny things. So I forgot to cut them from the bigger ones. And those are, I think, in the sunroom. So I don't want to go get them. We'll see. If I find something so hilarious that I cannot stand it, I'll have to get up and go get them. But Camilla didn't ask for any reason why. She just squinted a little as though she was trying to figure out what she could make for dinner out of a limited number of ingredients, and said, "Sure, thank you." Was that a clue? Are we any closer? Do you know who I am yet? No. That's okay. I love you. Tell Palamides I love him too. Don't forget, said Nona, and very pleased with herself, went off to brush her teeth and eat her breakfast without even being told. That session had been nice and short. She was so early that Pyrrha hadn't even started cooking breakfast yet. Or maybe Pyrrha wasn't going to cook at all, because she hadn't got out the little beaker to fill up the heat ring, and she was getting out a big covered dish, from the refrigerator. Pyrrha emerged from the fridge and said, "Cold mush all right? I covered it with the fruit juice last night. Threw a handful of dried sultanas in there too, so go hunting." That's adorable. I forgot her voice again. Better than eggs, decided Nona. How was work? Excellent. 2 of my guys got in a fight because someone said the fighting at Prathibi had been tougher than the fighting at Antioch. Had to peel them off each other. Ear-biting stuff. Here, take some water. It's going to be a scorcher today. Nona took the water from Pyrrha's brown, rook-chapped hand and even sipped it. It was blisteringly cold. Silly thing to fight about. Absolutely, but there'll be more of that before the end, said Pyrrha. They would have just yelled at each other 3 months ago. Now they'd happily kill each other over who spilt whose beer. There's more dead bodies in the streets now than there ever was at the first barracks massacre. First barracks massacre? Were they keeping the people from the houses in the barracks? On the same planet as regular refugees who hate necromancers? It seems very dumb. It's probably not what's happening. You see them lying around, dead. Not of exposure either, just dead. Creeps me out. How is it at school? None of my friends want to kill each other, said Nona. Then she amended, I mean, they say it all the time, but they don't really. None of the little kids have bit each other in weeks, and when they argue too much, Hot Sauce says quiet, and they're quiet. Hot Sauce is a girl with a future, so long as she gets a new name. Honesty says there's a really special and wonderful reason behind her name, and I should ask her sometime, said Nona, trying to select the smallest possible bowl to have mush spooned into. Tiniest one for her, middlest one for Pyrrha, biggest one for Camilla and Palamides. Then she remembered last night. Pyrrha, why does We Suffer hate you? Because I reminded her that her god was just a human being who could get tired and fuck up, said Pyrrha instantly. That was the wonderful thing about Pyrrha. She didn't waste time saying things like, "What made you think of that?" or "Why?" She went ahead and answered. In a way, though, it was also a bad thing about Pyrrha because she lied and told the truth at exactly equal top speeds. I like to think she doesn't hate me so much anymore, now that she's seen my famous charm, that is. No, she probably says to herself, of course, how could I have resisted it? How could anyone have resisted it? Because I'm charming, Nona. That's what I am. If you're that charming, said Nona, how come you're single? Pyrrha struck an attitude with a spoon over her forehead that looked much too melodramatic for her wolfish, ribby body. I have a broken heart. and I'll never love again. Even though Pyrrha was being ridiculous, Nona thought that she was saying it more truthfully than she wanted to. But if Nona looked at the way the red-brown eyes crinkled at the ends, Pyrrha really was broken-hearted somehow, which made total sense if she thought about it. Pyrrha had used to be like Camilla and Palamedes, and now her equivalent of Palamedes was gone, really dead, killed by a terrible monster that nobody would describe to her. It seemed impossible to think of Camilla and Palamedes being apart. Of course, they were apart, separated forever by a matter of minutes. But Nona knew they talked to each other in pages of letters and letters and letters. Nona had seen the stacks. Camilla didn't lock them up because Nona couldn't read, and when she said to Pyrrha, "Are you going to read my correspondence?" Pyrrha said, "Not unless I need to induce vomiting." Okay, but when Pyrrha said that thing about her god, did she mean Wake or John? Because I thought Blood of Eden hated John. Her god was just a human being who could get tired and fuck up. Honestly, though, it works for both of them. I don't think maybe they did. I think they did idolize Wake that much, though. You know, obviously they didn't call her a god, but, you know, the posters and shit. Nona was pushing mush around with a spoon when Camilla came in, rolling down the rolled up cuffs of her shirt and said, "Oh God, we're on baby food," which of course meant it wasn't Camilla at all. "Delicious num-nums for baby," said Pyrrha. "Anyway, it's this or beans and dried fish flakes." "I thought you were bringing home groceries last night." "I want half pay until they find someone to foot the drill bill," said Pyrrha. "Yes, but what happened to that half?" Pyrrha spooned the softened mush into the big-sized bowl and handed it to Palamedes. "You're going to make someone a really irritating wife someday, Sextus," she said pleasantly. I love them. "Devay, if I thought you were drinking all of our money away, I would sleep a peaceful and easy sleep." Palamedes brandished the spoon in her direction. "Who and why for did you bribe?" "Some guys. Sight C," said Pyrrha succinctly. "For God's sake, Pyrrha, if it's that hard to access, I'll swap you Site B. Cam and I have ways and means of accessing—" I would pay any amount of money to stop you taking that risk you take," said Pyrrha, digging a spoon into her mush and placing it squarely in her mouth. It's so swallowable." "Pyrrha," said Palamedes, "we only do it when we have to, and we'd do anything for a clue." Pyrrha dropped her voice very low. "Who gives a shit about clues? It's a thalergenic fuckfest you're subjecting that cerebral cortex to is what it is. Every time you overlap, son, you're subjecting her thalamus to appalling stress." What the fuck is happening? Who are they experimenting on? When they say Site C or Site B and then they start talking about fucking brains, I'm like, do they have a resurrection beast stuck somewhere that they're experimenting on? Or what is happening? But I don't know why they would care about subjecting that to stress. And I don't think resurrection beasts have brains in the traditional... No, they do. Because, you know, we saw Harrow stab one through the brain once. Okay. Thalergy, L for life, so... Thalergenic fuckfest, you're restricting that cerebral... So they're just, like, pelting it with life energy, I guess? Her thalamus. Her! Who's the her? I think, well, the kids named the resurrection beast a male name, I think. I'm Nona. I don't know what's going on. I greenlight it every time. I thoroughly scan her for, you should be draining and replacing her fucking brain fluid, said Pyrrha. When Gideon and I designed that trial, I used to crack his skull and sieve it myself, just as a control variable. What is happening? Pyrrha used to crack open her necromancer's skull? It's aggregative. I doubt you're testing her with white blood cell count either. The only other people I put through that damn trial were Mercy and Chris, because only Chris didn't mind being trepanned on the regular. Fucking around with souls is the problem, sexist. You can't ever get the full data on souls. Oh. Oh, it's Gideon's body! Isn't it? Well then why is it Site B and Site C? Who's at each one? I think I found one answer that just gave me a whole slew of other questions. Palamides ate a spoonful of mush very deliberately and thoughtfully. So you think I trust myself too much, he said. Pyrrha said, I think you can't be your own checks and balances, and you shouldn't try. Sometimes you remind me of my mother, he said. A woman I'd kill to meet, said Pyrrha. Let's hope you get the chance, said Palamides. Then again, Nona teased a soft, swollen sultan to the top, and mulched it between her teeth, trying to eat it very delicately. The mush wasn't bad, only too sweet and a little gritty, but she always had to decide which bits of it she could eat without bringing it back up or anyone else working out what she was doing. She said, Are you two fighting now because everyone else in the city is fighting? Working out what she was doing? What is she doing? Am I overthinking it, or is it just talking about the fact that she's, like, trying to figure out how much of it she can eat without throwing up? Is that what she hasn't been telling them? Both Pyrrha and Palamides looked a little hunted and guilty. Don't get too cute to live, kitty. No, I thought that was Palamides. Don't get too cute to live, kitty, said Pyrrha, but after all, she said kitty. She had said kitty and given one of her plats a twitch. We're stressed, that's all. Eat your mush. God, this stuff's awful. Funnily enough, Nona didn't mind it too much. It was so different from normal food that it was easy to swallow as much as she possibly could without thinking about it, which got her cheap praise from Pyrrha and Palamides both. Palamides ate his with a mechanical fury. Can't starve Cam, he said. And then once he had just about finished with the bowl, his timer beeped and he said, Thank God! I did it! And then there was Camilla. Camilla looked at Nona and said, Update? Palamides hates mush, said Nona. We had mush? Sorry, I saw the next line of dialogue. We had mush? Camilla looked down at her plate, then looked up at Pyrrha, who'd reserved all of her sultanas for last and was spooning them into her mouth. She said, What happened to the food money? I'm not fighting over this twice, said Pyrrha. After that, there was still lots of time before school. So they did one of Nona's favorite things. Nona got to stand on Pyrrha's feet, as Pyrrha and Camilla both laid down and did their morning crunches, their sit-ups and their stretches, with Pyrrha helping Camilla to stretch both her legs to the point where Nona was afraid she would go snap. And then they ruthlessly stretched out Nona too, making her touch her toes, making her stretch out on one leg, stretching her out too until she did hear a lot of little things go snap and felt brief, bright sizzles of pain. Gotta keep your muscle up, said Pyrrha. This is brute forcing it. At the end, she got her back and her calves rubbed, which was the best part. She felt breathless and sparkling by the time they started downstairs, more tired than she dare admit. But by the time they hit the street and wandered past the big steaming vents with the rest of the crowds, Nona felt better. They went down the street all the way and didn't take any turns until Pyrrha said at the park gates, Too busy, let's go around. And so Nona took Pyrrha's hand, and they went around. They turned left at the dog leg around the park, past all the braver stall owners and merchants setting up their wares. Dog leg? Is that a word? I suddenly was just like, I need to know. I mean, I'm sure it is a word, I just don't know what it means. I love that I come across a fair amount of words I don't know in these books. Less in this book so far, I feel like, than I have in the other ones. I feel like every few chapters will come across one of those bigger words. And then I'm just like, what is this? Well, it's not always, like, longer, but, like, bigger as in, like... Yeah, I don't know why I said bigger. Just, you know, words that offhand I do not know. Like, from context I can figure out usually what they mean. Something that has a sharp bend. Okay, that makes sense. Past all of the braver stall owners and merchants setting up their wares, smoking cigarettes, setting down long, untidy cables attached to exhaust fans to blow smoke away from their shoppers. Nona hung back a little on Pyrrha's arm to see all of the rows of thin synthetic shirts and plastic-coated boots until Pyrrha said, "What do you want from the Cheap Jacks, Nona?" "Oh, nothing. Except it is my 6-monther soon," she reminded Pyrrha. Camilla said, "You can get a present once it's been a year." Nona was alarmed. If she didn't get a present now, there was a good chance she would not get to have one later. Once again, that conviction. It seems a lot more like a conviction than just a, someday I might wake up and be someone else. But Pyrrha said, "God, you think she's ever gotten presents? I visited her hometown back before Anastasia got settled, and it was grim as fuck then. Just spooky caves all the way down." Oh, whatever. Forgot the voice again. I need to drink some water. Excuse me. This interested Nona, except Cam said sharply, "Don't lead." And Pyrrha said, "No leading, ma'am, I understand. What do you want for a gift, Nona?" Nona seethed in a welter of greed. "I want a pack of colored rubber bands to tie my hair up with so you can put one color on one braid and another color on another, like beautiful Ruby has." Pyrrha said, "I said a present, Nona, something that costs something." Nona was puzzled. "That's why I picked it. It's cheap, so you can probably get it, even if you have to pay the demo crew half your money. You don't earn much in the first place." "Domestic life," said Pyrrha to Camilla, over Nona's head, "is immensely depressing and has a lowering effect on the ego." "Sometimes," said Camilla unexpectedly. Once they went down 2 streets and back to where the park cut through usually led them, Pyrrha kissed the top of Nona's head and said, "Be good." And to Camilla said, "I'll be home for dinner, honey, so don't go out with your girls and get your nails did." "Try to bring home something useful this time," said Camilla. I love Pyrrha so much. Nona felt a pang to see her go, sauntering off with her lunchbox and her helmet and her spare jacket, whistling a tune like she was any other worker. Then Nona was turning right with Camilla, hustling through an alley, past the building that now had the hole in it because of the very big gun. There was only one change, in that Camilla picked a different road to go down because she spotted a pair of legs sticking out underneath a parked car and decided to go a different way. And then Camilla and Nona got buzzed into the school building by the nice lady teacher and stood in the vestibule shaking their boots. Nona was just in time. The move around the park meant she wasn't early at all. Cam stopped before Nona went to mount the stairs. Okay, oh my goodness, why is that suddenly such an awkward sentence for me? Cam stopped before Nona went to mount the stairs. "I'll come pick you up at the usual time," said Cam. Nona said, "Aren't you coming up?" "Not this morning." Then Camilla was gone. It was a little puzzling, but as Nona stood in the cloakroom and unbuttoned her sand jacket and unrolled her sleeves, her attention was caught by the voices of her friends already in the classroom, and that of the nice teacher lady. The sand jacket, the one that if she, does it wrong, gets her covered in, dirt? I was just thinking, I was like, why does she need to know how to get it on fast if radiation doesn't hurt her? Or radiation or pollution or whatever the fuck is going on with that atmosphere. And then I was like, oh right, so, doesn't give her away. I feel like I've got something in my eye. I've just been getting my eyelashes in my eye lately, and I'm like, excuse you? You're my last line of defense. How freaking dare. When she peeked in, the nice lady teacher was leaning over Honesty and applying a cloth to one side of his face, with Kevin and Born in the Morning gathered around. A cluster of tinies who had come early were watching the proceedings with fascination. "Hi, Nona," Honesty bawled in some agitation when he saw her. Miss, let Nona do it. Miss, this is hurting my dignity." The nice lady teacher was plainly stressed. She looked at Nona with relief and said, Nona, could you come and hold this? I don't trust Honesty to keep it still. It's too fucking cold is why, said Honesty. Language, thank you, said the teacher coolly. Sorry, miss, said Honesty. Only it is it's cold as hell is what it is. The teacher removed the cloth as Nona approached, fascinated. Kevin said, Honesty's face smashed in. And Born in the Morning hastily said, it's nothing, it's just a black eye. But what a black eye. Honesty's whole eyeball was alarmingly blood red, and the bit around the eye was already turning startling colors, red and purple and blue. Nona was glad enough to take the cold, tingly-smelling cloth and put it back over the whole mess. Honesty whined, for God's sake. Oh, I thought that was the teacher. Honesty whined, for God's sake. But the teacher said, hold it there until the bell goes. Born in the Morning, wipe the whiteboard, please. The rest of you give Honesty some space immediately. Books out, things ready, then down on the mat waiting for the bell. Suddenly, Ooh, one of my friends answered. Since I didn't post on Tumblr, I have a little chat with some people, some Locked Tomb people, and I was like, what the fuck was that moment where she just casually dropped the bomb of, yeah, necromancers and cages on fire? My friend's like, yeah, that was a moment. It's a very calm way to put that. Suddenly my brain's like, where are the words? I cannot find the right words. Oh, I forgot to put my earrings back on. Oh well, they were itchy. They're like very large and the edges are like a little sharp, so they were scratching. Awestruck, Nona kept peeking at the eye, then remembering she was a teacher's aide and reapplying the cloth hastily. Honesty asked, what is that stuff? I don't know, medicine probably, said Nona. Honesty, what happened? You should see the other guy, said Honesty very loudly. Then he said in lower tones, shut up, Nona, haven't you seen a black eye before? Not really, said Nona honestly. Whenever Pyrrha got hit hard in the face, it was better in seconds. Neither Camilla nor Palamides ever got hit hard in the face, and of course she'd never gotten any kind of black eye she could see. She said, it looks awful, your eyes all bloody and your cheeks huge. Honesty puffed up at this. I guess it's hideous. There was no sign of hot sauce, not until the angel came in with her tie-on squiff, and her shirt buttons all done up into the wrong holes, still wearing the same trousers she'd been wearing yesterday. She wasn't late today, but she looked more tired and lined than she had the day before. Somehow she even looked shorter, more hunched and defeated, but she rallied magnificently when she saw Honesty. She paused in front of him and Nona and said, go on, let me have a look at it. Nona peeled away the cloth to reveal the damage. Nasty, said the angel appreciatively. Think I'll get a scar? Said Honesty. No, it just looks disgusting, said the angel, looking him over. She reached over to probe gently at one of the swollen bits as Honesty flinched. It's going to hurt like fury, though. Main teacher came over with a relieved expression, having seen off a parent. Oh, thank goodness you're here. I wouldn't have the first clue what to do. Does he need to go to a clinic? No, nothing's detached or broken as far as I can tell, said the angel, draping the cold cloth back on his face. Once he's had 10 minutes with that, we'll get him an ice pack wrapped in a towel. What in living memory hate you, Honesty? This wasn't a fist. But Honesty glared at her truculently out of his other eye. Another word that I don't really know. How do you know? You weren't there. It might have been a fist. Might have been two. Honesty, she's a doctor, said the nice lady teacher. Well, said the angel, straightening her lapels in a funny way, I am adjacent to being a doctor, and I'm getting a good crash course in triage. Anyway, Honesty, if you don't want to talk about it, that's your lookout. I don't like violent stories myself. I'm not squealing to anyone. I'm not Kevin, said Honesty. Sure, nobody here minds. Be good for Nona. She's doing you a favor. Suddenly my throat's like really dry for some reason. Maybe because I've been reading so much today. It's been like 3 hours, 3.5 now. The nice lady teacher looked as though she did mind, but she followed along in the angel's wake, chatting inconsequentially about the traffic, which left Nona to hold damp cloth to Honesty's eye and shield him from the goggle-eyed tinies until the bell was rung to start the school day. The angel got him an ice pack wrapped in a staff room dish towel, and he seemed quite glad to hold it to his face, really. Hot Sauce had trailed in behind the angel at a suitable and careless distance. She passed by her own seat and ousted a tiny who sat near the window, and when questioned about it, the tiny peeped up that they had wanted to swap with Hot Sauce anyway, so all the main teacher could say was that they would swap back, please, after the break. Nona rather doubted whether this would happen, and in any case, it was a silly idea to pit your will against Hot Sauce's. Hot Sauce was always going to win, and the whole class knew it. This was illustrated at break. All the gang were inclined to fawn over Honesty with his wound. Nona's fruit had been promised to Born in the Morning, but Born in the Morning didn't even raise an issue when half that portion got slid along to Honesty. And most of the class had clustered around too, out of their seats when they weren't meant to be, asking him if his eye was going to fall out. Hot Sauce told them, scatter, and they scattered. Then she said, who did this to you? You don't have to go apeshit, Hot Sauce, Honesty said sulkily. I don't want to talk about it. I can't talk about it. I promised. Hot Sauce sat down on the cushion in front of him. She waited, resting her elbows on her knees and her hands in her lap. And she stared with her eyes open, not blinking, not watering. She did the thing she only did every so often, and only when they all begged her to, made her eyes go very wide and the corners very white. Because the stiff, grayish, rosish ripples of her burns didn't move when the other bits of her did. This made her suddenly lopsided and terrible with waiting. Born in the Morning and Beautiful Ruby and Nona all stopped eating and got very quiet. The only one who kept eating in perfect serenity was Kevin. Oh, Kevin! Honesty swallowed and said, come off it, boss. Hot Sauce said, you keeping secrets from me, Honesty? Honesty shriveled. Nah. Okay, said Hot Sauce. Even shriveled, Honesty still wavered, which Nona found impressive. Boss, maybe not in front of, the kids. We don't have secrets from each other, said Hot Sauce. Honesty swallowed again. He bent his head towards the rest of them and stared at the floor. At this cue, they all put their heads together, even Nona, despite the fact that Camilla had said not to do that if at all possible because of nits. Honesty dropped his voice so low that they almost couldn't hear it. Then he said what had hit him. Nona, who was good at hearing whispers, didn't have to strain to make it out, but Hot Sauce said, say it again. Say that again. What? Suddenly, it feels like my intonation is just really weird. Say that again. Probably because she didn't believe him. There we go. This made Honesty go red and he hissed, a street light. I'm not fucking kidding you here. Born in the Morning's voice was shrill with astonishment. My man, how'd you let a street light hit you? Keep it quiet, Honesty said. And Kevin said, it fell on you. No. I ran into it with my face so hard I fell on my ass and blacked out. And when I woke up, some wino who felt sorry for me had dragged me into their alley. And that's how low I fell. I got babied by a tramp, said Honesty. Then he said more reflexively, probably saved my life, though. They were good tramps, didn't understand what the fuck they were saying. They kept checking my mouth and my eyes and miming going, ah, and fucking biting at the air. I wonder if they were on something new. I gotta know for market economics. Honesty was talking very fast. When he had taken a couple of breaths and put a piece of fruit in his mouth for comfort, it was tiny sprays of green berries, the slightly soggy kind you had to suck off the stems. He said, anyway, I was out of my fucking mind scared. Hot Sauce said, a job? Yeah. Honesty fiddled with the empty spray and picked between one of his teeth with it, which seemed to give him courage. It was a fucked up job. I'm not doing odd jobs with those guys anymore. Well, can't anymore, even if I wanted to, come to think of it. Now Hot Sauce was very quiet and gentle when she said, tell what happened. Honesty took another spray to fortify himself. It was one of Beautiful Ruby's sprays, but Beautiful Ruby didn't even complain. I thought the job was to go down into the tunnels and get the stuff off the pipes, but it was van guys, said Honesty very fast. I said, no sir, Not if we're knocking off a gun vehicle, but they said no, they were going to grapple for aircon units on the top of mega trucks. You know, circuit boards and coolant and stuff. They said the trucks don't even notice until the next pit stop if you do it right. The driver just thinks gas gets blown or something. I don't know. One of the old chicks explained it, but I didn't get it. And I wasn't going to be grappling. I was going to be putting one of the overheads holding out the net so the grapplers could get back up. I don't get sick around heights. He sucked one of the sprays completely free of berries and chewed them. This close up, there was a little bit of saliva, so everyone went, ugh, and leant back. But then they leant back in. Honesty said, even more quickly now, it was a neat job, right? They drop on the van from the top of the tunnel. They unscrew the unit, then down the end of the street, we're there with the net, we scoop up the guy and the unit. Timing sweet as hell. He looked at Hot Sauce, implacable and opposite, and he swallowed again and said, worked fine the first two times. Then they were like, let's do a third. And their guy in charge was like, well, we don't have a timetable, but okay, we'll get into position, and if something comes along, we'll do one last run. So the guy gets into position, and so do we. Hi, Stinky. Hi. Hello, Stinky Man. Somebody is feeling neglected. Hi. Hello. Hi. Look at that fluffy tail. So the guy gets into position, and so do we. He stopped. Keep going, said Born in the Morning urgently. The rest of them shushed him, Hot Sauce included, and even Kevin. Honesty didn't join in. His eyes only met Hot Sauce's eyes now. Then we heard the noise, whispered Honesty. I thought it was an earthquake. I just about pissed myself. What are you doing? Just about. I saw them go beneath me. The heat nearly fucking roasted me and the other guys, but we skinnied up, and I always slop extra thermo, like you tell me. I'm the good boy. I burn like a fish in a rowboat, don't I? We had on masks, so we didn't choke, even me, they're professionals, but the guy had fucking dropped for them. I don't know what the fuck he was thinking. Why did he drop? Why did he drop for that? Fucking nuts, man. Fucking nutter, just brain dead, just out of his ears. This was all pretty incoherent, and Nona didn't quite follow it. Same, I have no idea what happened. I saw them go beneath me. The heat nearly roasted me and the other guy. The guy had dropped for them. I don't know what that means. And Honesty's voice had risen in a kind of strangled way and broken a little too, and nobody had even made fun of that either. Then Hot Sauce reached out and put her hand quietly and firmly on Honesty's shoulder, and that calmed him down. But he was sweating. He was warm. He smelled like overheated animal. So we pick him up when he beeps us. We get the net out, Honesty said more slowly, more methodically. Why did he drop? Stinky! Leave my camera, leave my stand alone. Leave my stand alone. Why are you sticking your tail under my arm? Why? Why are you doing this? Now there's cat hair. I am going to have cat hair all over me, aren't I? This is what I get for leaving the door open. I wanted you to feel less alone, Stinky. We get him up and he hasn't even got shit. He's like, go, go. Lead guy's like, get out, get back to the car. So we climb up the pipes, we get out to the vehicle, and we stash everything else, and I get in. I'm in the car with the guy, and his boss is there over the radio, and this guy's fucking crying. He's a grown man. He's all like, I fucked up. And the boss is like, who did we hit? And he's like, I don't know. And then he tells us this fucked up story. He says he drops onto the back, and it was a real sophisticated. He climbed down into the vent pipes to get the unit, pay dirt. He said, real good stuff, but then he pulled up a vent, and he saw down into the cargo trawler, and he said he saw... Honesty broke off. A shiver ran down Nona's spine. Nobody asked him to continue. People with no eyes, said Honesty. Born in the Morning said unsteadily, he was bullshitting you. Honesty ignored him. He said the eyes were all white. But he said he was moving quietly, really quietly, and these guys, they're all just sitting around. They all look up. They all look at him with these white-out eyes. They all look up at the same time. They look at him. He kept saying that. He said, suddenly breaking off. He kept saying, they saw me, oh my God. His voice took on a more normal cast, and he said that someone in the van behind started taking pot shots at him, so he called for pickup. The boss was all, calm down. But then the driver said we were being followed, And the guy goes crazy, sobbing and apologizing, saying he fucked up. He got us in trouble. And then one of the old chicks is like, get the kid out. And they stop the car, and there's another two big trucks pulling up behind us, militia trucks with guys in. For a moment, Honesty couldn't talk. They all sat there together and breathed as one. Nona matching her breath to Hot Sauce, matching her breath to Honesty, and beautiful Ruby, and Born in the Morning, and even Kevin, all in one tight and sweating circle. Then, in a completely normal and even brassy voice, Honesty said, then I ran like fuck and bunked my head on a pole so bad I probably got brain damage. So you have to all be very nice to me. The whole group absorbed this. Nona reached down for one of the empty sprays and chewed at the ends, wanting something to chew on, if not to eat, liking the way the tough, fibrous stem felt between her teeth. Then Born in the Morning said, you just said like 42 swears. Oh my god, man, shut up, said Honesty. It's not fair if I swear and get in trouble with Nona and Honesty doesn't. Yeah, if I swear and get in trouble with Nona and Honesty doesn't, said Born in the Morning. Shut up, Born in the Morning, said Kevin. And because Kevin never told anyone to shut up, Born in the Morning shut up. But that was okay. That broke the atmosphere. Hot Sauce kept her hand on Honesty's shoulder and said, you think they're following you? And Honesty said, nah. And then, I'm your boy, right, Hot Sauce? I'm your best boy. I'm your best boy? Yes, said Hot Sauce gently. You're my boy. I'll take care of you. These frickin' children and their gangs. I'm just like, what's happening? What's happening? Then there was the main teacher standing over them, and they looked up guiltily from their huddle, but she was only smiling at them in the way teachers did when they thought they knew what was going on and really didn't. Group meeting, is it? She said kindly. Honesty, here's one of the shelter pamphlets, okay? Honesty was so affrighted that he just said, yes, miss, thank you, miss, and took it. Don't worry about a thing, she said. Clean up, everyone. It's nearly class time. Nona, could you ring the bell? Then you'd better leash up Noodle. I want to mark some books. Nona jumped up immediately. Yes, of course. But she didn't go right away. She went back into a crouch as the rest of them picked up fragments of stem and crushed berry from the floor. Not so many crushed berries. They weren't stupid. And she volunteered, I'll take care of you too, Honesty. Who wants you to take care of me? Said Honesty cheerfully, getting to his feet. You're dumb as a box of hair, Nona. Nona was indignant, but Hot Sauce said, how many vehicles? I don't know, said Honesty. I wasn't counting the whole way, and the guy picked the middle one. Middle-ish? Over 10. Could have been 20. Mega trucks, all of them. I tell you what, he said, and he brushed his trousers off and he said heavily, I know what it was. I hang out with you lot. I know the deal. Nobody ever asks poor old Honesty. Honesty could have told him not to try and knock off the goddamn convoy. What? Are they transporting people? What's happening? Okay, so I can read the next chapter and the next dream, because they're pretty short. Alright, chapter 8. It's got the third house skull with the gem eyes. Hot Sauce approached Nona before the hour of science and said, you're still on lookout. But with all the fuss about Honesty, it had completely escaped Nona's mind that someone was watching, or that Hot Sauce was investigating. But that was Hot Sauce for you. Hot Sauce never forgot. Nona said, keeping a weather eye on the angel, chatting to some of the smaller kids as she got out a bucket of ice cubes and socks. They were finishing off a unit on temperature. She still looks tired. Yes. I should make her a coffee, said Nona decisively. I'm a teacher's aide. I need to look after the teachers, too. And did you know she was a doctor? Yes, said Hot Sauce, without explaining. And when you're out there today, I want you to pretend to do something. Okay, what? I want you to pretend you've got a radio, said Hot Sauce, and you're making a call. As Nona had never used a radio, nor made a call in her life, she said dubiously, it's not going to be very good. There's nothing out here shaped like a radio, so it'll have to be a pretend radio. And I'm not like Honesty, I can't do mime or anything. Hot Sauce tapped her foot impatiently, her gaze still outside the window for some reason. Pretend it's small, hand-sized. What do I say? Make something up, but hide your mouth. Stinky, why are you going on the bed? Stinky! He's gonna get on my yoga blankets. Stinky, don't get your hair all over my yoga blankets. Oh well. I'll get him off later. Yeah, I'm talking about you. looks straight at me, and then just keeps going. When the angel approached with Noodle's leash in one hand and what looked like 6 weird little cups in the other, she said, "Don't stay out in the sunshine any more than you have to. He'll want to walk, so can you put his pattens on? My old man doesn't need burns on his feet." Noodle's used to the shoes, but tell him to stop if you see him chew his feet, and he'll stop. I'll keep him inside, except we'll be using the hairdryer to... Oh, I'd keep him inside, except we'll be using the hairdryer today. And he always cringes at that sound. At the sound. Oh my goodness. Slow down. Thanks, Nona. You're my hero. Hot Sauce, can you set up the stations? Nona left the hour of science behind her and went down the stairs. She checked to make sure the light above the door was still red, which was one of her jobs, as the nice teacher lady always warned her that people would try to come in if the door was unlocked. And they probably wouldn't be dangerous, but if they had another teaching building get taken over by squatters, she simply had no idea where they'd go after that. Then Nona tried to put the shoes on Noodle. It was by far the most difficult thing she had ever attempted. It would have been easier to do the weird bone things that Camilla and Palamides loved her to attempt. Noodle didn't want to have his pattens put on. He kept staring at Nona over his shoulder every time she wrestled a tiny, dirty white foot into a patten. It was like a little sock over a plastic grate, and there were 6 of them. She even had to do the legs he often stuck up or folded in at the middle. At one point, Noodle cunningly wriggled his way out of one shoe using another foot, and Nona could have shrieked. She said, "Noodle, how dare you?" And he didn't look guilty at all. When the pattens were on, he clattered out into the courtyard. He sounded like 1.5 horses. He bucketed disconsolately around, smelling things, doing his business, and then drinking from the bowl of chilled water that Nona poured for him. Then he politely clattered away to lie under the big stone seat in the shade, panting. Nona ambled around the dusty courtyard for a bit herself until she simply felt too hot to live. Mood. The heat and the sweat were making her feel faint. She squatted in the shadows close to Noodle's seat and listened to him breathe, and then she tried to pretend she was taking a very tiny radio out of her pocket. She cupped her hand to one ear, and she talked out into the sunshine because she loved hot sauce and wanted to do it right. The heat made the backs of her knees panic. I love that. That's so weird. Hello, she said into her hand. I am having a conversation with Crown. Nona remembered that she was meant to be covering her mouth and did so. She said aloud, "How are you, Crown? Things are fine over here. I wish you were around more. You haven't come to see me outside of meetings for months and months. I know you said you visited me before, but I was too young and I can't remember it, so it doesn't really count. Would you like to come to my birthday party on the beach? If I don't get really mad, it'll probably still be able to happen." If I don't get really mad? What? Does she think... Does someone else get out if she gets mad? What happens if she gets mad? Or is it that if she gets mad, she gets punished and she won't have it? Okay, the yellow tab again. Because for some reason I feel like that might be important. You don't have to bring me a present, but please wear your hair down. Anyway, I love you, so bye. This was as much conversation as she could think of. She pocketed the fake radio and took her hand away from her mouth. Then she settled down on the bench in the shade to think. The smoke had cleared, and so the air outside wasn't making her cough. And there were little insects haunting the nearby dead brown bushes, murmuring busily. There was no birdsong, but every so often there was the nice, comfortable noise of a car backfiring. Nona put one foot down on the ground to anchor herself, and worked the other foot out of her shoe, and only felt slightly guilty that she was allowed to do such a thing, and Noodle wasn't. It was so hot, and her eyelids felt very heavy, and the stone beneath her was very cool. It's interesting that not a lot of the time, but I noticed the last 2 times, the dream chapters with John happened while Nona are asleep. Kind of like the flashback chapters in Harrow, I didn't realize they were happening like in real time. I thought they were flashbacks. Well, obviously the first time around I didn't know what was happening, but I don't know if the second time around I realized that they were happening in real time. I don't know. It's been a year. It's been a year. I think I read the first two books once, and then I immediately reread them, and it was around September last year. Anyway. John 15:23. Also, like, these numbers have got to mean something, right? I mean, they could just be random, but I don't think so. He said, on the first day, A believed. On the second day, so did M and G. By the third day, everyone believed, because of my eyes. He coughed wetly, and once he had recovered, said, a girl in my high school once told me I had pretty eyes. She was puffed up over that until I was like 30. You wouldn't believe how stupid guys get over compliments on our looks. I was vain. I was vain as. As what? But my eyes weren't anything special. Light brown, not even hazel. Yellow on a sunny day. How is that not special, buddy? The morning after the lights went out, they lightened to dark amber. Then they went the color of new lager, and on the third day they were gold. P said I looked like a Maori TV Pink Panther. C said I looked like Edward Cullen from that old Twilight movie, if Edward Cullen had the body of a history teacher. I can't. I have to go get an orange tab afterwards for this. A said I looked cool. He was the only one. He said, and all around us those corpses refused to rot. In the dream they were hiking up a big hill of brown sun-blasted grass, crunching like paper beneath their feet. Below them the waters were rising, but they ascended without hurry, unpanicked by that bubbling, churning brown morass. Those stupefying eddies frilled around the edges with trash of all kinds. Broken trees and big sheets of steel, bobbing, groaning constructions of tires and frames that he had pointed out as cars. He had spent some time pointing at things that were being claimed by the water, though she felt less that she was being taught their names and more that he was naming them for himself. Someone's Honda, someone's Mazda, someone's four-wheel drive, someone's shed, a Macca's sign. The rain would turn on and off. The clouds were strange, and in the far distance a twister danced on the neon surface of the sea. That is so weird! But very dreamlike, and suddenly I want to, see that. I feel like that would make a really cool animation, or just art in general. They found a bench to sit on, though they didn't need to catch their breath. It was warm despite the rain, and the air around them was moist and prickly. It made the skin on her ribs sweat, and he said, there it all goes again. I can't stand it. And for a long time he cried, unashamed. Once that squall had passed, he said, in the beginning we moved those corpses all over the place. Em was so frantic to prove something in the science had gone wrong, or right. I think she thought if we'd achieved some scientific breakthrough, I'd get a job again, and everything would go back to normal, and we'd keep doing Cappuccino Tuesdays. We picked 2 of them. 2 people, different sexes, different deaths. One got their neck snapped in a car accident, and the other was smoke inhalation. Same age, though, for control. They were both 20 days apart. Then we played dolls with those 2 kids for a week. He said they wanted to see if we could make them rot. We left them in the boiler room, left them in the morgue, left them outside overnight, exposed, all overdue in the morning. Nothing changed. Their internal temperature stayed regular the whole time. It wouldn't even change with A and C holding hair dryers over their damn bodies, or wrapping them in solar blankets and putting them in the sun. Poor C. You should have seen her heave every time we unwrapped the blanket. She was a good sport about it, but it wasn't in her remit. Contract law doesn't set you up for rolling a couple bodies into a pond. He said, but she didn't need to worry about it. They didn't change. Not one thing about them changed. They were perfect. All those corpses were perfect. He said, I had been sleeping in the facility already. I refused to go home. A and M moved in with me, and G set up outside. He was sleeping in his ute. Ute. U-T-E. I don't know what that is. My brain is like, it's a car. I don't think that is it. Utility. Yeah, utility vehicle. I'm correct. It is. C was staying with N. Long days. Skithere was staying with... I don't remember which one had an N name. I should probably... No. I was about to say I should probably remember all the lictors' names, but no. They weren't involved, so I do not remember their names. She left us early in the morning and came back the next day with sausage rolls for breakfast. I didn't realize it at the time, but she'd already gone AWOL from the stakeholders. She was doing freelance for us, so translated, she was unemployed. But she was the reason we could even stay in the building. She'd massaged all the contracts and told the cops we needed to be in there to make sure disposal and records were handled properly, which gave us a grace period of a whole month. How we got through that, I'll never know. I don't know if we would have got away with it if we hadn't had our pet cop. And if the whole world hadn't been freaking out every time you did something unexpected and people thought you were going to kick the bucket early. Nobody was looking at us back then, and we got lucky. It worked. What? And if the whole world hadn't been freaking out every time you did something unexpected and people thought you were going to kick the bucket early. Oh, okay, he's talking to the son again, I'm assuming. This just, yeah. Okay, purple tab. It just keeps making me think, like, Alecto is the spirit of Dominicus. Somehow. They resurrected Dominicus. People thought you were going to kick the bucket early. There we go. And, I guess, somehow gave her a body. Didn't know you could resurrect something and keep it just, doing its own thing and have the soul or the spirit come out of it. In my brain, I'm just like, I'd be so clever if that was correct and I guessed it. And I'd feel so cool and smart. And then I was like, I'm pretty sure I was just picking up on the clues in the book. If I am correct, I don't know. Of course I don't know. He said more to himself. Fuck, it was a weird time. I wasn't eating much. I only wanted to be with my bodies. Like if I took my eyes off them, the magic'd stop. That's creepy, John. I started knowing what room they'd been stashed in, even if nobody told me. C said it was psychological clues in their body language, but I wasn't convinced. I could feel them. I could feel everyone in the building. It was like having the lights turned off. You could hear all the lights. You can hear all the lights. Totally. No synesthesia here. You hear all the sounds outside. You hear all the cicadas in the grass. You hear the dogs in the next town over barking. You hear the moorporks in the trees and the possums skittering over shed roofs. It wasn't that I hadn't been able to hear them before, but I couldn't separate the noises, like hearing a chord without knowing what notes go into it. He said, A was trying so hard to bring me back down to earth, trying to get me to pay attention to the outside world. He'd swapped with M. She'd stopped freaking out. She didn't ask me where my pills or the drink was anymore. The what now? She took notes, helped with all the trials I wanted to do, squabbled with A. At least that made me feel normal. That was their usual double act. It was only when they felt the same thing that I knew it was serious. Like both wanting to kill you. He said, I just wanted to be in the lab. I felt like I could sit by those two bodies, those two kids, and make time go away. I could sit next to them for 6 minutes. I could sit next to them for 6 hours, just listening. They were my moorporks and possums. I was hearing their bodies and all that silence, all that bacteria that weren't growing, what wasn't building up in the gut, what wasn't pooling at the joints. They were my silent night. I should have been doing paperwork and closing reports, but I hadn't opened the computer in days. I couldn't stop thinking about their palms, their hands. I touched their hands so often. I'd touched their hands before, but not like this. Even when I wasn't touching them, I could feel their skin on my skin, the temperature that wouldn't change. I kept thinking I was touching them when I wasn't. Em said I should probably get tossed in a rubber room, but she wasn't scared I was nuts. She was scared I wasn't. He said, I can't even remember how it came together now. There was no catalyst, no revelation. I was too far gone for revelations. It was like I'd been a dozy and now I was waking up. So my two kids, the guinea pigs, they were U and T on their certificates, their old names. I thought about using those, but it didn't seem appropriate. They weren't around to say yes or no. I was starting to really care about that. What they would have thought, what they would have wanted. My 2 kids with their frozen brains and their perfect internal temperatures. There wasn't a place on the poor bastards I hadn't breached with the thermometer, and now I was knocking before I came into the room. Yeah, I was nuts, but I was waking up. That's creepy, John. He said, I can't remember how or why I brought M and A into the room. I was like, hey, you two, I want you to meet someone. I wasn't trying to be a dick. I think I hadn't slept for 2 days. So I brought them into the room with the bodies, and I was all, let me introduce you to Ulysses. Let me introduce you to Titania. He thought about it and added, I better say that it was Titania from Midsummer Shakespeare, but Ulysses was for a dog my Nana had when I was a child. I worshipped that dog. He was the bravest dog I had ever met. Half Chihuahua, half pug. Nan called him Ulysses S. Grunt. Died from eating too much pizza! The dog, I mean! Nan died of pneumonia when I was a teenager. She said, but what about the bodies? He said, well, when I said Ulysses, I moved each of his fingers and his thumb into a fist, curled them into the palm. And when I said, this is Titania, same thing, I placed each of her fingers and her thumb into a fist. And I was laughing and laughing like I'd kicked out a chair before someone sat down. Like, good joke, but M threw up. Because Harrow, I'd done it from the other side of the room. I do love, like, a one last line punch in the gut. I do love that. But yeah, now I am suddenly remembering that Ulysses and Titania were, as far as I can remember, a necromancer lictor pair. So they were dead. Oh my god, my butt is starting to hurt from sitting in this chair. It needs more padding. Yes, Stinky, I'm about to get up, and I'm gonna make you get up too. I'm sorry. When Augustine said he had died, I didn't assume that everyone else had also died. Did he... I'm confused. Did he create the lictors? Well, no. He must have... Oh. They probably had to die to become necromancers, since they weren't beforehand. I'm assuming that's the thing? Because they were both dead. I don't think they were both Oh, I have Hera right here. What am I doing? Oops. Sorry, Gideon. I'm sorry. I really need a better way to have these. I should probably just have them lying down like this. Nona can be over here. This is a Bluetooth speaker, by the way. I love it. Okay, let's look. Ulysses and Titania his cavalier. Yeah. Augustine Mercymorn, Gideon, Cassiopeia, Cyrus, Ulysses, Cytherea, Anastasia. Anastasia, it doesn't say anything. So... It doesn't say, like, saint, so I'm assuming she didn't become a lictor. Oh, right. Wasn't she the one that, like, almost got it right? And then, you know, died? Yeah, I think that's what was it. My god. This is so weird to look back and, like, see it connect to normal existence. The Twilight reference. I can't. Not the Twilight reference. But I want to know what happened. I want to know what happened. Did he expose himself to so much radiation that he became a necromancer? What's happening here? What's with the pills and the drink? Was he dying of cancer or something? we're getting all this information, but at the same time, we're not getting any at all. I mean, I know this is how this works, but still. Okay. Gotta go see if I can wrangle my computer into doing another one of these. I wouldn't use iMovie except that it's very good at color correcting, and most of these videos are pretty yellow. Because it takes like an extra like half hour to an hour to export. Oh well, doesn't really matter. See you tomorrow, I guess.